Ah, it's time. What is up, everyone? It is Anime Alex back again. Actually, I can't even say back again, because this is the first time I'm ever doing a movie review. So, for all of y'all in the comments and on Twitch and everything, let me know if you guys want me to do more movie reviews. But with all that being said, this is my non-spoiler review of Transformers Rise of the Beasts, and it is very fitting that this is my first movie review because as a little kid, I'm 23 now, but as a little boy, as old as 4 years old, or when I could remember, I have always been into the Transformers. I started when Transformers Armada was out. I went to go see the early 2000s Robots in Disguise. I Even though I watched Energon, I Energon was really bad. I loved Cybertron. That's probably one of my favorite, just because I remember back in 2000, like I think it was six. I really loved the toys, and I loved the whole Planet Cyber Keys and or Cyber Planet Keys and stuff. And I love Transformers Prime back in, I believe it was like 2013 or so. Uh, that's some perfect storytelling. And I went, and when I was a kid, I went back, saw the G1 because my dad showed me the G1 movie, and I was lucky enough to have like Boomerang and all the premium shows when cable TV was like a really huge thing in the early 2000s. So I would go on demand and go to Boomerang, watch the original G1 Transformers, watched it all the way up to I think it was season two with Rodimus was in charge, even though season two was very divisive in the community. And I also watched Beast Wars off of early days YouTube when it was basically the Wild West, and there was like full episodes just posted there. And I believe you could still go back and watch all of the episodes of Beast Wars on YouTube nowadays because of how old it is. Um, but yeah, I've been a Transformers fan since my inception, and I remember when I was a kid, I always wanted Transformers. For my birthday and or Christmas, it was Transformers, it was video games, and it was Bionicles. Those are like the holy trinity of what I used to play with as a kid. And then when you throw in anime in the mix, that you basically just that is like that Powerpuff Girls concoction to make me. You just throw a little bit of that chemical anime in there with the rest of everything I just said, and bam, you basically have everything that I love. That and like fast cars and whatnot. But anyways, I'm not gonna spoil anything here. I'm just going to say what I believe, and trying to give an objective overview of the movies to say if you should watch the movie or not. Spoilers, you should watch the movie. I will get into that. But uh but to talk a little bit more, I did go see an early screening. I was luckily enough, there was only 3 early screenings. One of them was in the city that I lived in, and even luckier, it was like the movie up the street from my it was just the movie up the street, up the road from me. So, it really wasn't a hassle. I didn't have to drive cuz living in this area of Texas, like it is a hassle trying to drive anywhere. So I'm glad that I didn't have to like drive hours out into another city and have to watch it. And I could just watch it from my fingertips. So bless up there. Now, I will say this as a Transformers fan, I've already made it very apparent that I'm a Transformers fan from my early spiel. As a Transformers fan, this is the most cohesive, the most fan driven, and the most like just faithful movie adaptation of any Transformers movie. better than the Michael Bay movies. Now, I will say I love the first Michael Bay movie. I love Dark of the Moon. I think it had some phenomenal action in there. It's just really the story is kind of the story is kind of, well, the story for the first one and the third one are actually really good. It's when you get to the second, the fourth, and the fifth one that the story is bad. And also, my cat's scratching. Give me like 1 second. Anyways, I am back. Uh, but it really, like, outside of those three movies, like the first and the third Bayverse movie was actually really, really good. But what kills me in the Bayverse movies are definitely the human elements. Now, in the first movie, it wasn't really that bad. You had like a mini love plot with Sam, who's played by uh Shia LaBeouf, and May Megan Fox's character, Michaela. And in the first movie, it wasn't really that. And there goes my cat. Or one of them. In the first movie, it wasn't that bad. In the second movie, the love plot did kind of kill the second movie. It did really drag it down. Uh, but wasn't that bad. And then obviously, due to Megan Fox's character not being cast, or Megan Fox not being cast in the third movie, it did kind of make the love plot in the third movie very questionable, because uh all of the lines and stuff for that one blonde lady, I forget her name, in the third movie, she, like, that's supposed to be Megan Fox, but they had to retcon it. It is what it is. But that's the thing. That was like the huge thing of the Transformers in the Bayverse movies. The humans felt very forced in there. When the humans came up, they dragged down the plot, they slowed it down, the whole 9 yards. And it leaves me watching those movies. I just want to get to the action. I just want to get to the Transformers. Like, the Transformers for me is obviously the big selling point. Uh because we want to see how they interact. We want to see their characters more than the human characters. And I feel like with this movie, we actually got a really nice blend of it. The human characters in this movie are the best human characters we've ever had in a Transformers movie, because they don't feel forced in the plot. They serve specific roles that only they can do, and the Transformers have to rely on that roles. And you also have to remember this, due to the reboot of the Bumblebee movie, this is a Transformers team that isn't used to humans. They don't work with humans. They typically want to be in disguise, as in robots in disguise. So they don't alarm humans. They don't, like, have humans hunting them. Uh, like the CIA, the government, just hunting them just to see and just to question what are they. They're very much just, if you guys watch the Bumblebee movies, they are very much, we're using Earth as a refuge. We're going to regroup on Earth, and then we're going to figure out a way to get to Cybertron. That's kind of where they're coming from. So whatever the humans have going on, whatever the human problems are, that's just kind of second nature to, like, our problems. And I think that's a very realistic viewpoint of that. And I really do like that. And I love how this movie is all about establishing that bond between the Autobots and the humans, and then the Maximals are kind of there to just bridge that gap, and to show, and just to show, like, Optimus and the Autobots, like, just the humans also deserve to be protected. They're also more, there's more than meets the eye to them, and stuff like that. And it makes, and you can tell from the beginning to the end of the movie, the Autobots have a newfound appreciation for the humans, and that's kind of how that connection, like, begins. So it's not like Optimus gets to Earth and he's like, "Oh, we have to protect the humans," and just do casual, like, stereotypical good guy stuff. Optimus is more of a morally gray character in this movie, and that's what I love about him. It like you see Optimus's weaknesses. He's not just Robo Jesus like in the Bayverse films. Like he can take on everyone no matter what. He's more like humanized, and I felt for Optimus. I I also loved what they did with a Bumblebee in the movie. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but Bumblebee had his moments, but I love the fact that Bumblebee wasn't like the main character as of the Bay like the Bay formers Bumblebees, cuz obviously it was like we have to get Optimus fighting Megatron. We have to get Optimus doing like the over the top badass kick at all the Decepticons because he is just that guy. He is Timothy himself. He is Robo Jesus, so he has to take on like most of the weight as the leader. But then you have Bumblebee going around doing what he can, filling in like that second in command role. And I feel as if we have gotten so much Bumblebee in these like these other movies that I'm glad that Bumblebee wasn't a main focus in this movie. He filled the role that he needed to be, and he got his roses and flowers. He got his just desserts or his time to shine at the points that he needed to shine in the movie. But after getting his own solo standalone, like his own standalone film and 5 movies to be the main character, like we didn't need B to be the main character of this movie, which is what I am so glad and I'm so thankful for. And me watching the original G1, B was never like that main of a character. Like, yeah, B and Optimus was tight, and B is one of Optimus's top lieutenants, and almost kind of like a son, like B is kind of like a son to Optimus, and you even see it in the movie that B is kind of like a son to Optimus. Uh, I'm just glad that this is kind of more of the G1. Like B does what he needs to do, and he doesn't hog the spotlight like in the previous movies, which segues into a newer character. They bring back Mirage. He is voiced by Pete Davidson. So whatever you feel about Pete Davidson, whether you like him or not, I think Pete Davidson did a phenomenal job as Mirage, and I feel like a lot of the comedy in the movie was co-written by Pete Davidson because you all know Pete Davidson worked with SNL. He is a comedian turned actor, and Pete Davidson is pretty funny. A lot of the jokes from Mirage stuck, and since this movie is based in 1990s New York, it really does a great job. Since Pete Davidson is also from New York, it does do a really great job of like blending that New York culture with like a Transformer. And I like how Pete Davidson was like just a perfect cast for Mirage. Mirage was funny. I feel like Mirage stole the show. He honestly was probably the best Transformer, but it's really hard because a lot of the Transformers here are really good. I will say there are some Transformers that we could have used a little bit more from, but that's not their fault. It's not their actor's fault. It's just the script didn't really allow for them to shine, and it's not even the director's or the script's fault. It's just because there are so many characters and so much is happening that if we basically tackled more into like some of the more lesser characters, it would kind of muddy the plot, slow it down, and I think this movie was a perfect pace. So like I was glued to it. I went with my girlfriend. We were both like from start to finish glued to this movie. Nothing was boring. And there was a lot of emotions, a lot of intensity. I was like, man, it was great. I'm gonna get to that later, but going back to Mirage, He was just phenomenal. Honestly, I would much prefer Mirage and Pete Davidson to be the main Autobot than Bumblebee. Bumblebee fits the second in command role. Bumblebee is Bumblebee. Give him his awesome fighting scenes. Give him his funny like radio clips. We're done. We're good. Bumblebee does not need to be the main character. Optimus Prime needs to just come in, be the voice of reason, be the leader, and then just be the overall wrecking ball, like the muscle at like in the bigger fights. Mirage needs to be the person who is like connected with the human characters, and I honestly do think that the main human character Noah should come back, which uh I will say watch the end credits. There is an end credit scene, not going to spoil it, but just sit there and watch it. So I hope Noah comes back and he's like the quintessential like main human character, kind of like the new Sam Witwicky, because I think he did a phenomenal job. He doesn't come off as like just he's BSing his way, kind of like Sam did in the second movie, like when Sam got blown up and then resurrected back to life, and then gives the matrix of leadership to Optimus Prime, and then Optimus Prime turns into Robo Jesus and completely negatives the Fallen in the second movie. Like I feel like Mirage and Noah's like bond, that is like the tightest bond I've ever seen. And I think we need that. I think we need that in the next movie. I think we need that in the movies going forward. Noah is not just a blithering idiot, because in the beginning of the movie we see that Noah has a like, this is kind of light spoiler. Well, no. Uh, we see that Noah is not just your average guy. He has some combat expertise. He has some engineering expertise. So he has a resume. He has a resume to fit this role of the dude. The dude has the tools essentially to do the job, is what I'm trying to say. Unlike Sam, who is just like, oh, I have to hang out with the Transformers because my great grandfather also hung out with the Transformers or discovered them. And so he's like kind of like doing it out of obligation for his ancestors and his family. This guy is like, he just, things happen. Now he's working with the Transformers, but at least he has the skills to work with the Transformers. And going into the female role, she also has a job to do. She's not tacked on. She's not tacked on as like a romantic love interest, which I do like. So it doesn't subvert the whole Autobot or like the whole Transformers plot just for a love angle. We did not need a love angle in this movie. I'm glad that they did not give us the love angle in this movie. So if you guys are worried about that, rest assured. But the female character is also Elena. That's her name. Elena is also really lovable in her own right. I think she's very based. And what I really do love is like she fits a role that she needs to fit, and she does not undermine Noah. Noah fits a role that he needs to fit, and he does not undermine Elena. They both work together, and you can see that bond really forming between each other as like just friends and even just like partners in crime, sort of speak. And it's just like that, like all of the themes going on just work. Everyone works, and we're not having to sacrifice anything for like some weird side plot with them. So moving on from the human characters, a couple of obviously like a couple of Autobots could have, like I said, could have shined more. Same with like the Maximals. As a Beast Wars fan, yeah, sure, I would have loved more Maximal interaction, more Maximal lines, because frankly, there's only two Maximals that got a lot of screen time, that being Optimus Primal and Airazor. Cheetor and Rhinox didn't really get a lot of screen time, but they did what they needed to do, and I feel as if they didn't get a lot in this movie, you could theoretically just make a spin-off to where it's just Optimus Primal and his group of guys, and then you can give more lines and more of a role towards Cheetor and Rhinox in that aspect. And I also believe that if you were to go, or if the director were to take it down that route, because I do believe like this is the director that we need as Transformers fans. He is the director of Transformers as far as I'm concerned after this movie. No other director will ever compare to this dude. He I feel like if this director or some other director like picks up where this guy leaves off, or he picks up where he leaves off with the Maximals, I feel like you could try to throw in Rat Trap and Dinobot in a continuation with him, and then maybe like the Predacons with uh with you know T-Rex, Megatron, and all that stuff. I feel like there's a chance that could happen, a very slim chance, but if they did want to go down that route, I would be very open for it, because the Maximals really, even though with their minimal screen time, they are awesome. They are shown to be a cohesive unit. They are shown to be just what they are shown to be what the Autobots should strive to be. And it's funny because the irony of it is, if you guys know, in the original sense of Beast Wars, Optimus Primal is named after Optimus Prime. So Optimus Prime came first, and then he got lost to time, and then Optimus Primal came later as like a descendant of Optimus Prime, as kind of their ancestors. And they kind of tease that a little bit in the movie, when like, I'm not gonna say when, but they tease it in the movie. And so, as a Beast Wars fan, that really did warm my heart, and I feel as if that is just being really faithful to like the first cartoon. I do think that the Beast War, like the Maximals in this movie, is more akin to the Maximals and basically like the Beast Wars characters of the IDW comics. It's kind of like blending the cartoon and the IDW comics together. And for you guys that don't know about the IDW comics because you only really watch the mainstream stuff and whatnot, I will give you like a short rundown. So the IDW comics tried to do this thing of like uniting the OG G1 continuity with the movie continuity and like some of the cartoon continuities, and they all just kind of like blend it together to make the IDW continuity, which is like supposed to be somewhat the definitive continuity currently. And in that continuity, you see that going from the original 13 primes, which are descendants of, or the descending warriors of Primus that have banded together to fight Unicron in the from the 13 original primes. Then came like the Autobots and the Decepticons and all that stuff. That's just a whole like other video. But one of the original primes, his name is Onyx Prime, and when he separated from the 13 primes, he inhabited a planet, and then on that planet he made Transformers that transformed into real life animals, thus creating like the Maximals and the Predacons. So I feel as if they didn't really explicitly state or mention Onyx Prime in the movie, which they didn't really need to. But I feel as if that planet, I feel like as if what the Maximals were going for, or what the director was going for, the Maximals in this movie, was definitely akin to the IDW comics, with Onyx Prime creating a planet, then creating the Maximals, and then Optimus Prime will become like just being one of the Maximals in there. And and just having his own like team, his own squad, you could say. I would love if in later movies, when we get like Megatron coming back to the big screen, which we all know, like the next Transformers movie has to be Megatron coming back to being the main villain, and then after that, we could probably get into like 13 original Primes stuff, or maybe like another villain, and yada yada yada, and probably like getting into like just bigger bads, or maybe even having the quintessons come in after uh yeah, honestly, I feel like if I was a director, next movie definitely should be Megatron as the big bad. After Megatron, uh, have him get returned into Galvatron for like the third movie, since Unicron is a part of this movie. I'm not gonna spoil what Unicron does or whatnot. You guys are gonna have to just watch the movie. But obviously Unicron's a part of this movie. So if Unicron's a part of this movie, that means there needs to be Galvatron. So we need to get Megatron in. We need Megatron to lose to Optimus. We need Megatron to get reborn into Galvatron, to come back and to come back and to lose to Optimus, and then Unicron being defeated like what in the third movie or something. And then in a fourth movie, we have like Quintessons coming back and doing whatever, and then you can have like the 13 Primes story like interwoven with the fourth movie, and then you can bring back like Megatron or Galvatron, whatever he is in that state, or if he does survive past the Unicron fight and Galvatron like sacrifices himself on at the Unicron fight for Optimus's survival to show that he turns. If you do bring back Megatron or Galvatron, whatever he will get called, in this hypothetical fourth movie, then you would have to have him team up with Optimus to fight the Quintessons to prevent like the 13 original Primes weapons from getting into their hands. But what I do love about this movie is that they do set up for that potential. They set up for like so much stuff in it, and that's what I love about this movie. Uh before I talk about uh before I talk about like where this movie or like the series can go uh to, and like some of my nitpicks of the movie and my last final thoughts, we're gonna get into the villains, because I just talked a lot about the main Autobots. Obviously there's other Autobots, but they played just minor roles that there's not much to talk about. um so let's get into the main villain. The main villain is Scourge. And for those that you don't know, I know a lot of people will be like, Megatron's the big bad. Megatron is the one that's supposed to be fighting Optimus. Scourge is a okay, so there are a couple of Decepticons or evil Transformers that are on the same level of Megatron, if not better than Megatron or stronger than Megatron. One of these, one of these Decepticons, or they go by Terracons in the movie. One of these like evil Transformers is Scourge. We have seen Scourge back in the Cybertron anime, uh, and just in other adaptations and even in the comics. Scourge is him. Scourge is not to be messed with. Scourge is like, even Megatron doesn't mess with Scourge in adaptations. He is a beast. A beast. Usually Scourge turns into a dragon. That's just how much of a beast he is. In this movie, he turns into a truck. It is what it is. I would have much preferred him being a dragon. But Scourge, I love what they did for Scourge. Honestly, I feel like Scourge is a better villain than Megatron. I will say a nitpick for me, maybe Scourge could have sounded a little bit more menacing, but his actions in the movie is beastly. Like, you felt his presence like throughout the whole movie. And Scourge, Scourge was just Scourge was just whew, he was murking people, dog. Scourge was not someone to mess with, and I really do like how they elevated the villain, because watching the original Bayformers in the last Bumblebee movie with directed by Travis Knight, the villains always kind of end up just being Megatron trying to be badass. Maybe he did kind of like a couple of evil things, but then Megatron completely just gets wrecked by like Optimus Prime turns Robo Jesus and completely wrecks Megatron. And then we enter like the Fallen, which is actually one of the 13 original primes, which he's supposed to be Megatronus. Uh and then like the Fallen got completely neg diffed by Robo G. Like Optimus Prime did the fusion hod dance with Jetfire and then completely neg diffed uh the Fallen, which is supposed to be one of the 13 original primes, which is supposed to be one of the 13 like strongest like Transformers in history, and he got completely neg diffed by Optimus. And then you had Sentinel Prime, and then which is the prime before Optimus and the prime that gave Optimus like the title of Prime. He is also nicknamed Zeta Prime in other continuities. And then like Sentinel Prime obviously got tag teamed by Megatron and Optimus and then done away. And then Megatron got no diffed by Optimus with one arm in an axe. And Megatron had a shotgun in the third movie. And so Megatron again looked like a bitch. And then we don't really talk about the fourth and the fifth movie, like Megatron appearing as Galvatron, getting remade into Galvatron, and then like leaving the movie only to be remade back into Megatron, and then Megatron didn't even have that big of a role in the fifth movie. It like I didn't really like how Megatron got turned into a subservient person in legitimately four movies. Four. Like, this is going to be a tangent. Four fucking movies. Megatron has been made into someone's lapdog. He was made into the Fallen's lapdog, and then he was made into Sentinel's lapdog, and then he betrayed Sentinel, and then got wrecked, and then he was made into like the whatever government experiment lapdog or whatever the humans were working on. I don't know. Age of Extinction sucked, but then he overrided. I don't know. Like Megatron was so evil that he overridden his codes to be controlled by the humans as Galvatron, and then he's Quintessa's like lapdog in the fifth movie. It's just like, I'm so tired of that. The only lapdog that Megatron should be is Unicron's lapdog, and that's because Unicron is just the overarching big bad of the whole continuity, the whole universe. And that's been since back during Primus. For those who don't know, Primus is essentially like the god of all Transformers. Primus created all of the Transformers, and his brother is Unicron, who is the destroyer. So if Primus is the creator, Unicron is the destroyer. Unicron is a huge ass planet that eats other planets, that also can transform into like a galactic size transformer. And then Primus is Cybertron, and he can also turn into a huge galactic sized transformer, because Primus is essentially got imprisoned in Primus basically. So depending on which continuity, there's a continuity where Primus got imprisoned into a meteorite, and then that meteorite became Cybertron, or Primus is Cybertron and can transform into Cybertron. It's just Primus doesn't have enough Energon to transform into Cybertron, and that is because, you know, the Great War stuff, Decepticons versus Autobots due to resources, which is a very, very realistic human viewpoint, like human interaction, sadly. But Decepticons versus uh Autobots, and there's a lot more to that because depending on which continuity, then you have like the Quintessons, and they're like the creators of the Autobots, or in other continuities, Primus is just the sole creator of the Autobots and Decepticons. And then so obviously the war happens, lack of Energon, Optimus and the Autobots dip out of Cybertron so they can regroup, get more Energon, come back stronger uh to retake Cybertron, which is the whole point of like the siege of Cybertron continuity. And so then, since Primus can't transform and Primus doesn't have as much Energon, and so he's basically dormant, I wonder what they're going to do when they bring back, or when like Unicron becomes like the overarching villain. Like they tease Unicron, they set up Unicron in this movie, but he's obviously not. Well, he is the overarching villain, but he's not like the main villain. The main villain is Scourge. Scourge also is accompanied by like two other Terracons, but they don't really have a lot of lines. Like they do stuff. One of them with the jetpack turns into an R33, a Nissan Skyline R33. I looked at that and I said, why aren't the Autobots turning into some Fast and Furious cars like this? Like, bro, I look at that car and I'll be like, dang, Optimus, I think I gotta switch up, bro. Yeah, I love the Skyline. Skyline is just a sexy car. If I was a Transformer, I'd definitely turn into like an R34 Skyline, which is actually what original Drift turned into. So, and Drift was cool. Drift is a cool Autobot. So, you know, Scourge was him. I loved his presence in the movie. I could say kind of needed to sound a little bit more menacing because some lines did kind of seem flat, but I'll get to that in my nitpicks. But is that it for all the major characters? I believe that is it for all the major characters without having to go too much in depth. So moving on to my nitpicks. Like I said, one of my nitpicks, some lines sounded and ended up coming off flat. I don't know really too much if it was because of like how it was edited, or that was just like the voice acting, but it wasn't really that bad. Like it was only like a couple of scenes that it seemed flat. Everything else was just like it was perfect. Um what else? The pacing was really good, so no nitpicks on there. I guess you could have a nitpick on the Maximals and the lack of their lines, and somewhat just a lack of their importance. No, I wouldn't say lack of their importance. They were important. It was just only two Maximals got most of the lines. So if you want to nitpick that, sure, but I just feel like if you did give the other Maximals more lines, then like what good does it do with the story? All it would do is just add more unnecessary exposition, and then just kind of drag down the story. But to compensate, they gave the Maximals really awesome fight scenes, so I was pretty good with that. If we get another movie, just dive more into the Maximals that we didn't really get into this movie, and all is forgiven, all is good. That is the same nitpick I would give to the other Autobots that felt kind of pretty minor, like RC and Wheeljack. And for another I guess nitpick would be like they kept most of the G1 feel for the other Autobots besides Wheeljack. He didn't turn into that that Lancia. He didn't turn into that Lancia back in G1. He turned into like some hippie mobile, but I mean Wheeljack Wheeljack served his purpose. He was there kind of for comedic value. You don't really see a lot of him. I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but not really. Like he was just such a minor character that he was just there. So, but you know, he helped out. It is what it is. Like I said, as long as they in the next movie they do more and they have more RC and more Wheeljack moments, then all is forgiven. Because like I said, if we had more Wheeljack moments or RC moments in this movie, we would get bogged down. We would just it would just muddy up the plot. We just needed Optimus moments, we needed Mirage moments, and we just needed a Bumblebee moment. Or Bumblebee moments, a few Bumblebee moments. Just for the fan service. That's it. Just those three. What else? What else? What else? I think that's really all I have to say and nitpick of the movie, really. Because all in all, well, I'll get to the rating in the at the end, but uh, man, all in all, I've seen a couple of people do early reviews of the movie, and they say it wasn't as good as Bumblebee, and that is completely false. Like, I don't know what movie we were watching, but like, dude, the only good part, or I'm not gonna say the only good part of the Bumblebee movie because the Bumblebee movie was good in its own right, but the best part of the Bumblebee movie is the beginning part when they are running away, and they were fighting on Cybertron. Other than that, the Bumblebee movie was very boring. No one gave two craps about Charlie. No one gave two craps about like Bumblebee and the Charlie relationship. Uh, we only really cared about when Blitzkrieg came, messed up Bumblebee and took his voice, and then Bumblebee basically had to get reverted back to the Bayformers Bumblebee, which I hate. If you're going to bring back Bumblebee as a main character and give him more main spotlight, do a story of him getting his voice back because this just needs to stop. I am tired of radio talk Bumblebee. I hate how that is his stick. It was his stick in Transformers Prime. It's just it was his stick kind of in the IDW comics, and it's his stick in whatchamacallit. And it's his stick in this movie and in the Bumblebee movie. It is tiresome. It's tiresome. I remember back in the G1 movie, like, or in the G1 continuity, like Bumblebee talks. He likes the humans. He talks to the humans. He had horns on his head. Now, I can understand that they probably went with a face swap of Bumblebee to like that mask more bee-like look, to one, be more like a Bumblebee for his namesake, and two, to differentiate himself between Cliff Jumper, because Cliff Jumper in Bumblebee movie, even though he died, RIP Cliff Jumper. That is also another tangent. I hate how they keep on making Cliff Jumper die. I would love to see Cliff Jumper. I would love to see Cliff Jumper be a Dodge Challenger, be just being a muscle car and being Cliff Jumper, because in the Transformers Fall of Cybertron movie, it was cool how he could turn invisible and he was like an assassin type character. Stop disrespecting my boy. He can come back as a Porsche 944 like in his old G1 continuity, or do his newer continuity transformation of having him turn into a Dodge Challenger, and then him looking like his OG self, kind of like same body as B, but the head is more G1 while B is more Bayformers. I think that is just perfect. But anyways, if we have B come back as a major character in a major role, like in having a major focal point of the story, make him get his voice back. I am tired. I am tired of this. Anyways, going back to going back to the overall or like the comparisons of this movie and the B movie. Another one of my tangents of the B movie was just the humans felt forced. The humans felt forced, and I guess you kind of had to have like the human opposition as of like, oh, the CIA is going to have to check in on all these aliens and whatnot, yada yada yada. The Decepticons in Dropkick and I forgot the other one, but the Decepticons we've seen were killing people like Cliffjumper, who should serve the same strength level as B. But B in the movie had no other Transformer help, no other Autobot help, and so B was 1v2ing two Decepticons that I guess he had to tap into a little bit of Optimus Prime's Robo Jesus powers by the end of the movie to pull off the 2v1, the 2v1 jump, which when you look earlier in the movie, the two Decepticons had no problem disposing a person at the same power level of B. So, like, how did B win? I don't know. You basically had to turn your brain off and be like, okay. You had to just turn your brain off and then just kind of like suspend belief and just accept the fact that B turned into mini Robo Jesus. I don't know. He turned into Robo Moses. He had to part the space seas to basically radio contact the other Autobots to Earth. And then at the end of the movie, you see Optimus give out the whole "we need to stay in disguise" and you know his speech to the Autobots hidden among the stars, which you know it ties into the ending of the Bumblebee movie. This movie ties into the ending of the Bumblebee movie actually quite perfectly, because what that ending of the Bumblebee movie does makes it to where no matter what Transformers movie that we have going forward, you can always just put in new Autobots without having to really explain how they come into the story, because you can always have a conflict. Then you have Optimus saying, "Coming in, all Autobots, meet up here," and then like a whole bunch of new casts of Autobots just meet up there, because at the end of the Bumblebee movie, it is specifically stated that the Autobots are on Earth. They just need to be in disguise and just hide themselves until Optimus calls them. And in this movie, it shows that they regroup onto Optimus in kind of like a makeshift hiding area. And then bam, you got you got your Autobot team for the movie. And it's the same way with the Maximals. Like, they have their own hiding area. The Autobots have their own hiding area. And whenever they need to come together, then they come together. And this can be said to any other Transformers, which also opens up the possibilities of the Transformers not always having to be in America. They don't always have to be in America. They don't always have to be in like a certain place. You can literally change the environment, change the background or the setting, and you have different Transformers that have adapted to whatever country that they're from, as you've seen with some Transformers in this movie. So it's like, that's just a really good not a cop out, but that's just a really good way of just not having to go full in depth with a background for said character, and that they can basically, you could just click, drag, and then just put them into whatever settings. So it is perfectly written in that aspect. Um, there was some like I'm banking banging my head because there was like something that I just wanted to say, and it just got lost to time. Oh yeah, that's it. Speaking about time, it does kind so when I was so this was a nitpick of mine, but then the more that I thought about it and worked out worked it out in my head. It's not really a nitpick. It just is what it is. It's how Transformers always is. I'm not going to spoil what they're trying to find, but it does when I was first watching the show, when I was first watching the movie, it did kind of seem that it was a little bit cringy, that they had to go on another wild goose chase to find something. I'm not going to say what that something is. You're just going to have to watch the movie for yourself to figure that out. But it did kind of remind me of that whole Bayformers. We have to find the Allspark before the Decepticons find the Allspark, because they're going to use it for evil purposes, and then the whole universe is in peril. They are not finding the Allspark in this movie, but they are finding something that fits that role. And then I thought that was kind of, me being 23. I was like, I think that's kind of a little cringy, because that's kind of what the Michael Bay for, like, the whole Bayformers plot is, and especially with also the Matrix of Leadership in the second one, and yada 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 yada, and like the planet and whatever, the space bridge keys and the third one. Regardless, the more that I think about it, that has always been the plot of Transformers. So I honestly cannot dock it points for that, and I honestly cannot be mad about that. Because in the original G1, the main concern was we have to find Energon, because if we find Energon, we can one uh when we find Energon in the G1, which were like these cubes of purple and glowing purple energy, we can then power up Teletram 1. We can then power up ourselves and, and make sure that we're living, because the Transformers back then had to run on Energon, but later in the continuities, it has been, they don't really have to run on as much Energon as they had to in the OGG one. But Energon, but like I was saying, they had to go look for Energon. They had to make sure that they get the Energon deposits before the Decepticons get the Energon deposits. They slide up on the Decepticons. They get to bussing. Starscream and his jet buddies take to the skies and start doing like flybys and air raids on them. And then you have like that classic 80s action. Uh, the Autobots normally won, get the Energon deposits, and then Optimus is spilling out exposition and like the teaching kids always stand up for what's right, and always like fight against evil and whatnot. Just standard like 80s tropes. Uh but it's like the G1, like in the G1, they had a fight for, like I said, Energon in Beast Wars. It was all about the Golden Disc in the OG Beast Wars cartoons. In Transformers Armada, it was about the mini cons. In Transformers Cybertron, it was all about getting the cyber planet the cyber planet keys, specifically the gold cyber planet keys. And in and they also got the gold cyber planet key specifically for the Omega Lock, which the Omega Lock was to reactivate Primus back in the OG 2006 Cybertron anime. And then in Transformers Prime, towards like the second season, when Smokescreen got introduced into that cartoon, they were searching around for like the artifacts of the 13 original primes. So no matter what Transformers show you are watching, they are always having to try to find something before like the Decepticons or insert whatever bad guys are trying to find it. So like I said, can't really dock points for that, even though it is really overdone at this point in time. But hey, it is a simplistic plot, so kids could get into it. And at the we all know, at the bottom line, like, Transformers is to market towards kids. They are going to market toys to kids so they can sell toys. That is Hasbro's MO. But they have enough nostalgia to make their older fans happy. And this movie was not political. This movie was not politicized, unlike stuff like the Little Mermaid and whatnot. So you don't. So if you're worried, if you're one of those people that are worried because of the state of politics, don't worry. This is a movie for everyone. This is a movie for older fans, newer fans, people who didn't get into, people who aren't really into Transformers. No matter what you believe in, Transformers is for everyone. This movie was for everyone. This movie, pound for pound, is the best Transformers live action movie we've ever had. This movie shows a very bright future for the IP, for the movie continuity going forward. I love it. It is definitely a 9.5 out of 10 movie. One of the best movies to till this year. I watched Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. I really did love that. And then I watched the Super Mario movie, and I really did love that. This movie is up there with those movies. I don't know which one I like more. It's honestly like a tie between Puss in Boots and in this movie, but since I love Transformers a little bit more, I'm gonna give my personal bias as this is my favorite movie of the year. So, with that being said, go watch the movie. Go understand what the hype is about. It is so good, and you will not, and I mean you will not be disappointed. With all that being said, thank you for stopping by and watching my review. And with all that being said, peace out all my fellow weebs and weebets. See you in the next one.